and the track changes she thought I wouldn't see. I make other people sound like the best version of themselves. That's what a ghostwriter does when you sand it down. You take a voice that trips and you teach it to walk in a room full of knives. My days are Word docs, red pens that never run out, and a desk that collects coffee cups the way some people collect grievances. I like the quiet ambition of commas. I like the moment a sentence realizes it knows where it's going. Nora used to say she fell in love with my mercy. "You don't punish first drafts," she'd tease, hooking her ankle over mine under the table while I rearranged paragraphs for a woman who thought an anecdote about Tuscany would fix her marriage. Nora is a publicist turned author, good at giving interviews that sound like confessions and confessions that sound like strategies. We were a tidy conspiracy. She made attention arrive. I made it behave on the page. At night we made dinner out of deadlines and one excellent pan, and when she leaned against the counter and said, "Fix me," I knew she meant recipes and everything else. The file found me on a Tuesday that pretended to be gentle. "Can you give this a line edit?" she called from the shower, sending a Word doc to my laptop with the subject line Chapter 6. I opened it with the self-satisfaction of someone gifted work they can do in their sleep. The draft loaded, blue bar crawling, my name in the corner like a promise. Track changes was on. It always is when people want to feel collaborative. I scrolled, accepting the routine, tighten here, cut a vary, let the scene breathe. The chapter was about a gala on the river, lamps, linen, a speech that landed. Nora had that trick of making rooms seem inevitable. I admired her paragraphs the way you admire a dress you can't wear. Halfway down, a sentence snagged me at the ribs. "He laughed in the key of relief," she'd written. I had texted that to her 3 months ago after we watched a stranger step off the curb and not die. Not a common phrase. Not the sort of line that floats through a party and lodges in any ear. I paused, then kept working, because coincidence is a useful liar. A few pages later, she wrote, "He touched the notch of my hip like a bookmark." I'd said that to her in bed, breathless and proud, the night her book deal became real and the city politely applauded outside our window. There is a particular humiliation in seeing the private words you hoped would live in a small circle of skin show up in 12-Point, Georgia. I could have closed the file. I could have asked at breakfast, arms wrapped around her while the kettle consented to boil, "Who is your he, and why does he get my lines?" Instead, because I am the kind of man who trusts his tools even when they make him a coward, I clicked review right arrow show markup right arrow all markup. Track changes bloomed like forensic lilies. Insertions in red, deletions in blue. Comments in the margin bearing initials I did not recognize. J, love this, and J, cut the adverb, and once, J, keep the balcony, it sings. You can learn a lot about a person by how they edit. This J preferred nouns that clicked, verbs that paid rent, the occasional italic to pretend spontaneity. J was good. J was also careful with Nora's name, initialing compliments like presents left on a stoop. I scrolled, half editor, half trespasser. The note's pane showed versions. I clicked back one, then another. The he of the chapter had begun as you. You, not the pronoun people use for audiences. The second person a woman uses when she wants to make a sentence come when she calls it. In earlier drafts, Nora had written, "You lifted your glass and made the room hush." "You never said sorry," she'd typed, then changed it to "He didn't say sorry," as if moving weather across a border. "Coffee," she called, towel in her hair, voice bright. "Always," I said, forcing steady into a mouth that had learned a different job. She patted in with 2 mugs and kissed me, one warm point of contact that usually rearranges the furniture in my head. I accepted it like a proofreading mark. "It's clean," I said about the chapter, and it was. That was the problem. Good, she said. My editor on my spine. If I send her something that doesn't make her perform relief, she gets itchy. You turned me into relief at least twice, I said, meaning my prosody, my hands, my quiet. I meant too many things. She cocked her head, unreadable in the way she has to be when she goes on television. You okay? She asked. Your track changes love a J, I said. Not a question. The word love did a backflip and tried to land on its feet. She exhaled, set the mug down, and took the chair opposite me like we'd both agreed the table could be a witness. Jasper, she said. My old client. You've met him. He's the one who thinks every conversation is a pitch and wants to be sold to like it's foreplay. The venture capitalist with the haircut, I said. The haircut, she agreed. He offered notes. I was stupid enough to take them because he knows where money breathes, and I wanted the book to feel like oxygen to people who can buy a wing. Also because, she stopped, then started again, a cleaner version. Because he was around. He stayed late to help and I let him. It felt like coworking and then like something else and then like a cliff. I didn't jump. How close? I said. Because arithmetic is the only math the heart respects. 3 edits in a bar and 1 hand on a back that didn't belong to him, she said. And 1 balcony I walked out onto alone because the room made being good look like an amateur decision. Did you kiss him? I asked. The ritual cruelty. No, she said. I wanted to want to, which is worse. Then I went home and you were sleeping, and I lay there looking at your face like a sentence I kept trying to improve until I remembered I wrote it on purpose. Anger didn't arrive like thunder. It came like the errata in a book you've loved too long. I saw myself reflected in her laptop screen. A man who teaches paragraphs to behave and believes life will listen. I closed the file gently the way you close a door with a child asleep behind it. Don't use our lines with men who aren't paying our rent, I said finally. My voice was the kind you use on students when you're trying to be kind. Don't turn us into color commentary. Okay, she said, I won't. Don't invite men I haven't kissed to leave notes in your margins, I added, and hated how petty it sounded even as I meant it with my whole mouth. She smiled, winced, then looked at me in the one way that has ever made me believe in adulthood fully. Okay, she said again, no more Jasper. I'll send him a polite kick. She had the decency to do it while I watched, email open. Thank you for your time. The polite knives that cut a man without blood. She closed the laptop like an agreement. We sat there with coffee cooling and the city trying to sell us other lives through the window. Do you want to throw something? She asked. I want to be 22 and dumb and not good at metaphors, I said. Failing that, I want to take the chapter and turn every he back into a you and watch your face while you read it. You can, she said, and the heat in the word was not an apology. I didn't. We have rules and neighbors and rent. But I did stand up and come around the table and lift her into my lap like we were students again on a deadline that had forgotten to be cruel. She put her arms around my neck and lowered her forehead to mine, breath a small weather change. In the bedroom, we undressed with a care that wasn't chastity so much as a statement about precision. She rolled onto her side and I met her there, the shape we know best, greedy and deliberate. It wasn't vengeance. It was a footnote in a language I refused to let anyone else edit. After, in the warm mess of sheets and afternoon, she traced letters on my chest with her finger, J, then a firm, satisfying line through it. I laughed despite myself. How long did you have his initials in your document? I asked. Too long for discretion, she said. Short enough for rescue. The next day, because I can't help myself, I opened a new doc and wrote a rule set. We're good at rules when they have verbs. 1. Track changes off unless invited. 2. If a balcony appears in a paragraph that isn't ours, we delete it with prejudice. 3. If another man's notes start making your sentences braver than your behavior, you come home and borrow mine. She read over my shoulder and hummed approval. Add a fourth, she said. If you catch me turning life into a scene before it's a decision, tell me to stop performing and start choosing. Fifth, I added, if you catch me treating us like a draft that must be improved, tell me to love the sentence we are. We taped the list inside the cabinet where we keep the good glasses, because nothing says accountability like having to look at your own rules before every pour. He didn't vanish. Men like Jasper never do. He texted the kind of text designed to make his exit sound magnanimous. Nora didn't reply. At the next event, I filmed him from the back of the room, a man holding a mic like permission. I cut the video for her socials and left his best line on the floor. Editing is a revenge that looks like favor. I also did a small, dark thing that will never go in any vows. I opened an old document, the one where I drafted a chapter for her before we decided it was better if she wrote her own book. It was a love letter disguised as process. I pasted a page into her new file, changed "we" back to "you," and left it there with track changes off. When she found it, she cried the way writers do when they've been saved by a line someone else wrote but somehow still own. I let her claim it. That's the job. Not everything was noble. Some nights when she was late, a column of speculation scrolled through my head like credits. Some mornings, when a blue bubble named Jay appeared on an old thread, my stomach curated panic. We learned to say it out loud. My brain is being dramatic, I announce, and she would come stand behind me and set her chin on the top of my head, the domestic gesture that always makes me feel like a person and not a tool. Heat returned the way it always does when you stop pretending you're owed anything. We didn't use sex to fix what wasn't broken anymore. We used it as punctuation, a comma when the day needed breath, a dash when one of us brought home a frenzy of other people's urgency. Some afternoons she'd text me a line mid-meeting, "I am not a room," and I'd send back a photo of our bed, sunstrip across it, as if to say, "Here's the page you can write on." On good nights we wrote it. Months later at her launch party she read from chapter 6 and did not choke. No balconies, no borrowed pronouns. She lifted the glass afterward and found me in the crowd. "To us," she mouthed, then shook her head and added, "to the work." I nodded. The distinction mattered. Jasper came through the line with a gift-wrapped box and a look that wanted history to be a brand. Nora thanked him in the voice she uses to put men down lightly in public. I took the box to keep her hands free and unwrapped it at home. A fancy pen, engraved with her name and a motto he'd used in meetings, "Make it inevitable." She took it from me, opened the window, and set the pen on the ledge. We watched the city not care about a symbol for once. After a minute, she brought it back in. "Paperweight," she said. "For contracts we print and then ignore." We still slip. Last week I caught her writing "he" where I wanted "you," and the old anger blinked awake. She saw my face and said, "habit," and changed it. Yesterday she caught me rewriting a story about us into something safer. "Leave the mess," she said. "Readers like to think we're human." I left it. Readers do. Sometimes, when she's asleep, I open the document with the feature called Version History and look at the names attached to the earliest drafts of us. Mine and hers mostly. A friend in one margin, an editor in another. I scroll through the changes and marvel at the audacity of thinking you can track how hearts learn. Then I close the laptop and put my hand on the small of her back where the sentence ends. I say "stay" without saying it. She does. I still fix other people's voices all day. I still take out the adverbs that apologize for desire. but I keep a little folder on my desktop now called We, and when a line arrives that should belong to us, good, ugly, greedy, I put it there before the world tricks me into giving it away. Some mornings I read from that folder while she brushes her teeth and we laugh at our own audacity, then get quiet at a sentence that somehow earned the right to be true. She kisses me, toothpaste and heat, and asks, "Can I steal it?" And I say, "You already did," which is a better kind of theft when the house it happens in is ours. We made one last rule for the cabinet door. It's handwritten, not tracked. If you're going to be the story, be the author. If you're going to be the editor, be kind. And if you're going to use a line in public that started in a private room, you have to whisper it to me first, mouth on my skin where punctuation learned its job. She does. I check the work we publish, we stay.